quick overview of what I want to go over. I want to talk with you a little bit about how to create an account. And there is a wonderful PDF file that I will email to you after this, which reminds me, I got to just take care of some administrative things here in a moment. And you might see my mother in the background coming in, just FYI, because Tommy is just not being held back by closed doors. Tommy is my 17-month-old son. So there is a Adobe file that I'm going to show you in a moment, but I'm also going to share it with you. I'm going to talk about how to, once you create an account and have access to the account that the Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning is managing, where you can record actually longer than 15 minutes. Screencast-o-matic is just like many other software programs that do screen recording. They have a free version and they have a for pay version. The free version means you can record up to 15 minutes. You don't have as many editing functions, if any, I think, but maybe a few. Afterwards, and I'm going to talk about how we can use this as well with this modality. But you can only record up to 15 minutes, which is actually not a bad thing. And I'll say a little bit throughout about length of recording as well. But if you do want to record something in the longer, want some flexibility, the for pay version will allow you to record more than 15 minutes. So I'm going to talk a little bit how to create the account through the account to the Faculty Center, how to set up when you start recording. So I'm going to take you through how I would go about basically doing a recording and explain things along the way. I'm going to talk, so there are some things you want to set up beforehand, and while you're recording, there's some features you can use. I'm going to share the ones that I like and like less, and so that you have options there. And just for full disclosure, there are tons of great videos on Screencast-o-matic's website for any of these features, and I'll post a link in the email I'll send out afterwards with a link to the link to this recording as well. So so there's some recording features while you're recording, and there are some editing features. And I have to be, for full disclosure, the editing features are the ones that I'm the least familiar with because I haven't used them as much, but I was experimenting with them over the course of this past week. And so I can demonstrate a few of those for you. But the main thing, really, what I want you to walk away from this session is knowing that you can experiment with this. And if you have never used this before, I haven't used it in a while. If you have some time over the next couple of days, weeks, however long we're stuck, or just, you're working on something, just do like a test version of something and just play around with all the features. That is the best way you can learn. I've done this but trial by error as I was recording things for my courses, and through lots of re-recording and redoing things, I have become efficient in producing things that I'm happy with for my courses. So that's sort of our agenda for today. I might go back to this a few times. Let me get out of this presentation mode. I will show you the PDF file. And before I do this, actually, one quick thing, I'm going to post this link here in the chat box, and it's a sign-up form for this, to quote unquote take attendance. And please fill this out if you have a moment to do this right now. It's really helpful to me, so I know people who are on here. I can see everybody's name, but sometimes the name is, not the fully spelled out name. So just make sure I have everybody's contact information to send out all the materials out afterwards. And when I send those out to you, feel free to share them with faculty colleagues. This is, nothing proprietary, but I want to make sure you guys get this stuff. Okay, and there's another form for later on, but I'll talk about this. So here is the Adobe, the PDF file for, let me minimize this here for a second, the PDF file, a quick start guide for Screencast-o-matic that my colleagues in the Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning have put together, which is a really kind of quick, the most important part about this is it gives you directions how to use the software if it's the first time using it, or how to use it accessing the account through the Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning. It gives you really clear instructions. Just go through these. Again, I'll send those to you. I'm not going to go through how this works because I've already installed it on my computer. And this works for PCs and Macs alike. And then it also has, and I'm just going to show this to you briefly by scrolling down here through the screen. It has, and you'll see this in a moment when I walk through these in greater detail, it gives some really bare bones basic directions of how to record. So you can always go back to this document as well about some of the basic features of using Screencast-o-matic. I'll walk through all of these with you and some more. But again, this is a great great handout to keep in your sort of folder where you keep stuff on your recording features. I use a lot of recordings for my online classes. I try not to make them longer than 15 to 20 minutes at the most. Ideally, I like to keep them between 8 to 12 minutes. Doesn't always happen. This is so much about, just a little bit of a preview about length. So I'm going to minimize my screens here. Let me minimize this one right here, so it's not going to give me any trouble. And I have a PowerPoint up for later. So right here, you'll see, actually, before I do this, here is my background screen. This was, I don't know who this person running is, not me for sure. But you see right here is this sort of blue, it looks like a bullseye in blue. It says Screencast-o-matic version 2.0. That is the shortcut that I have installed on my computer. So once I open that, it looks like this. Right, so here is my here's my personal page, so to speak, my account within the Faculty Center Teaching and Learning account. And you'll see here all the different videos I've recorded over the years. So there's quite a lot here. But this is where all of the recordings are stored. And this is also where you start the actual recording feature. So when you open up, when you've downloaded, you followed the instructions, you're connected with the Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning account. And I need to learn the acronym. It's Faculty for Center for FCTL, right? Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning, FCTL. One of these days I get this. When you open it, you'll get the screen either with one recording, no recording, or multiple recordings, depending on what you've done in the past. And over here on the top, you'll see, and I'm going to point to it with a little annotation. So hang on with me for a second, so you guys can see what I'm pointing to a little bit more clearly. Right here is the recording feature. Okay, so this allows you to start the recording and a new window will pop up, and I'll show this to you in a second. You also have options here for scripted, which I've never used. There are different ways you can, what I usually do is I use a PowerPoint or a PDF file on application that I want my students to know about, or I want to walk them through some content and I record what's on the screen basically. But you can also record something and then script it. So there's tons of possibilities that I haven't even explored. You can also import things. So, your usual kind of window here with different options. But the real important piece is the record window. So when we click on record, it says launching recorder. And this thing here comes up. This is your recording, your settings. And let me walk through actually how to set up what you want to record, because you have different options in Screencast-o-matic. You can record, and I'm going to click on this right here. You see this screen, which means everything that you see in front on the screen is going to be recorded. So you have that option. There is an option where you can just record the webcam. You don't see anything in the webcam window right here. It's grayed out because WebEx is actively using my webcam. Usually whatever you see me doing in the WebEx window would be here in the webcam window. So just sort of imagine that. I haven't figured out a way to circumvent that. So the gray window would basically be the webcam. So you can just record yourself, and this is all the students would see, or you can do both. So you can have the screen and the webcam. You see up here in the right upper corner of my screen, you see that grayed out window that says webcam. You can move this around to different positions. So if you were sharing a PowerPoint or a PDF file, this window, you can move it around. Sometimes if I use this feature rarely, and I'll talk about this in just a second why, but when I've used it, I sometimes had to move my webcam around based on how my PowerPoint or the application or PDF file or Word document was sort of it comes up on the screen. You don't want to hide, you want the webcam window to hide anything the students are supposed to see. Okay, so so again, three options: just the screen, just a webcam, or both. And there's ways to manipulate when students can see the webcam if you include it in your recordings in the editing function later, but I'll talk about that, so keep that in mind. If I personally like just recording the screen, and there's a couple of options you have. Let's say you're just like, yeah, webcam video, whatever, my students know me, or I might record an intro video with just me speaking. But for my actual lecture material that I want to deliver, or I want to walk them through how to use a certain application, they don't need to see my face. Hearing me is enough. So you'll have the option here. If you choose this option, you can go either full screen. You see a couple of different options pop up here. You have, there's different sizes, and I think they're based on like HD sizes. I've never used those. I usually use active window or full screen. So full screen, again, everything you see. And active window is the part that I like to use, and I'll tell you later why. And so you see these, what just popped up here, and I'm going to minimize these a little bit. You see these black and white, this black and white square here. You can minimize it. You can also just expand one side, and you see my recording thing follows me wherever I go with it. So you can manipulate how much you want to show of the screen. I use this function because I do a lot of my screen recording in an indirect way from my iPad, which I will talk about later on as well if it's something that interests you. But if you're just interested in the full screen, you have that option here by selecting on size. Active, full screen active window allows you a little bit more manipulation. If you're like, you know what, I want my students to demonstrate an application, but I don't want them to see my bar here on the bottom, all the things that I have open, usually my mess, as I like to call it. So I can then manipulate only showing them what's in this window. Okay, so we have that option. The one feature that I skipped right here, maximum time, it says recorder will record until you pause, until your hard disk fills up, which I've never done. So I've never used this. So I think if you do a lot of recording, a lot of longer recordings, that might be useful. Here is the option for narration. Which I haven't chosen. So I usually, let me see, what I put in here, that's what I do. I usually use the default microphone. So, and right now it's my headset. And I want to say a little bit about audio quality as you're doing narration. I have recorded a lot of my videos and with just my computer sound without wearing a headset. And the audio quality is so and so. Sometimes you can hear my cat walking in because his litter box is right behind me. I do a lot of my recordings right here. So so that's really kind of a a way to minimize the sort of sound. And even, and I have this, and if I can show this to you, give me 1 second. I bought this really fancy microphone for podcast recording, and it's huge. It looks like a little globe. I have used this as well. I have found that the headset really gives the best sound quality, the clearest sound quality. But this one might as well. I haven't really experimented too much with this yet. But just now, there's other options, and you can use a microphone you can speak into. Again, for recording, the clearer the sound, the better your students will thank you for it. The feedback that I get for my classes the past 2 years has always been the audio quality hasn't been this great. Shavia is asking a question. Shavia, could you mute yourself? I think you're unmuted, just FYI. The product information for your headset, absolutely. It's a Logitech USB one as well. That's a really good point. I'll make myself a note and I'll send that out as well, because I ordered these a while ago for the writing center, some of the writing center's headsets, and I'll send that out to you. So let me put this here, info about headset and the microphone. It's not a fancy pantsy headset. It really isn't. It's just a very bare bones. You stick it into the USB and that's it. But I'll send out the link for Amazon. I don't know if you order it now, who knows how long it'll take, but eventually maybe you'll get it. So you can even use just a regular, if you can plug it in somewhere in your Mac or your PC, just regular headset. It'll probably do a better job than your camera microphone, because again, it picks up the ambience around, ambient sound. So when you click here, again, you can click, if you have different microphones, you can select the one that you want. And as it says here, make sure the green bars flash when you talk, which you see they do. So it tells you it's picking up the sound. You can also have the option of computer sounds, which I'm going to turn off right now. And this is basically the clicking of the mouse. If my email is on in the background and it dings or something, it just takes all that computer sound off. So I like to have this off. And that's basically how you set up your recording. So the nice thing about, I didn't mention this before, about the different settings here, screen, webcam, or both, is you can change it while you're recording as well. And I'll show you how that happens in a moment. I've recorded actually a little demo video I'm going to play for you a little bit later after I go through some of these examples. So that's how you set it up. And I'm going to show you in a moment what to record. So right here, I'm just going to go with And so you can close this, and the way you get this, because I think one time, my first time when I recorded, I was like, where did the window go? You just click on the little settings icon and they come up again. So no worries. So, and then there's some preferences, and and again, I encourage you after this to just, log in, play around with it. I mean, just have fun with it. It's really, it feels so intimidating, but it really isn't. It is super user friendly. And the good thing is, if you record and you never, you don't share with anybody, nobody will ever see what you've done. So experiment with it. Any questions before I move on to actually showing what the recording looks like? Let me go on my outline here. Let me see. I'm going to give folks a few minutes to maybe type some questions up. Or if anybody has any experiences they want to share, I'd love to hear that too, or whatever that is. Let me see. So we're looking at with or without webcam, what of your screen to share, setting up audio and video. So we covered all of that. Check, check, check. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions come in, which means I'm going to get out of my full screen here, minimize it. I am going to go with recording full screen just because it's a little easier. There we go. So full screen, everything will be recorded. So when I'm ready to stop my recording, so what I usually do is, oh, here is Christina asking, how does Screencast-o-matic differ from Voicethread? Does it? That's a good question. Voicethread doesn't capture the image. Voicethread just, it's narration. So you could technically, because I've used Voicethread just for like recording some feedback to students' papers and then sent them the file. What you could do, and I'm not entirely sure about this, I would have to ask Kevin or somebody else in your team, Christina, if you could record a Voicethread audio and then just record the screen and then use the Voicethread recording to lay over, right? Because you don't have to do it all at the same time. You can go to the PowerPoint. If you feel like, gee, I just want to do the visuals before I do the speaking, you can then use an audio file to add to your video. That might be how you can combine them. But Voicethread, again, is just recording, from my understanding. Does that make sense? Anybody else have experience with Voicethread? Am I totally out of left field here? Ah, you can narrate slides. Well, there you go. Go ahead. Jim, you want to say something about that, Jim?
Now, this is Henry.
Oh, Henry, go ahead. So you've used it, Henry.
Yeah, so you could do recording of your of yourself as well, and you could also record your PowerPoints. And in fact, I've had students, a short assignment where they would have to make a presentation, 4 or 5 slides, and so that works in Voicethread. I don't. I'm trying to think of the difference myself. I don't think Voicethread if Voicethread has the same capability of editing.
Yeah, I think that might have been. Yeah, Jim.
You can't edit in the same way, which you can do in Voicethread, and I'm an admitted Voicethread junkie, which is why I was particularly interested in your presentation, because I want to see what's different. The way you edit in Voicethread is basically you narrate one slide at a time, and if you don't like it, you just delete it and do it again.
See.
So you can save it.
Interesting.
That way, and it saves one slide at a time. So you're not doing a whole lecture and then going, oh gosh, in minute 14, I made an unfortunate noise and I need to go back and do the whole thing over again. That's one thing I like about it is it's very modular and it's very chunky.
Sounds great. Well, maybe Jim will volunteer at some point to do a little demo for us of Voicethread. Just putting that out there.
I had a funny feeling that was how this conversation was.
We'll follow up with you on that. Thanks for your input, both Henry and Jim. Make sure you unmute yourselves again. You mute yourselves again. Thank you. So you know, again, I have used Voicethread. I mean, I didn't even know that you could record. I just used it once or twice to record something. But, you know, and then there is there's other screen recording programs like Panopto, Camtasia. Those are the two I'm familiar with. I've used Camtasia a lot, and I liked it a lot, actually. But I like some of the more kind of Screencast-o-matic travels with you a little bit better than Camtasia does, because Camtasia at the time you had to download on your computer. Anyway, but we're focusing on Screencast-o-matic. So I'll be interested, Jim, if you want to maybe after this share with us a little bit, or you can email me what are some of the major differences that you see since you have experience with Voicethread. I'd be happy to share that with the group as well. So if you logged in a little bit later and you didn't hear me say this, there is a link in the chat box pretty early on to a Wufoo form. Just make sure you click on there and sort of register as a participant in this workshop today. So this is what it looks like. Great question. And let's continue. So let's say you're like me, and I'm also kind of a free-flowing kind of person. And for those of you who work with me know this. I don't have a problem if I realize that at 14 minutes, I'm like, I got to do it again. Or I might pause and then go back and then maybe edit it out, because that's the beautiful thing here. You can edit chunks out of your video, right? So, and it really looks well at the end. It like there's a little break when you play it, but it's barely noticeable. So it really works well that way. So I don't have a problem. I off my memory in a sense. I don't even use a script. Some people read things, so it's really up to you. There's no right or wrong way of doing this. And let's say you're like me, you're ready, you have your PowerPoint here, and I'm going to go into this PowerPoint that I'm going to do on Thursday with some folks, and I go on my presentation mode, and you know, this is my first slide, and I'm going to hit record right up here in the left, the red button, record. And what will happen is, and you'll see this, it'll give you a countdown of 3, 2, 1, just like you're on television, and then the recording starts. Okay, so you click on recording. See 3, 2, 1. Go. So now I'm live. I would be like, hey, my name's Isabel May. I click on the next slide. And somebody's saying something about the Google form. I'll share it again in a second, absolutely. And so here is, you know, like I'm talking about the publication process. My name is Isabel May, blah, blah, blah. I do this and this. So, you know, I kind of go into my spiel, and I start with the first. I want to focus on academic publishing, and it's recording and recording and recording. And that's basically how it works. And let's say I'm done. I press on this button here, the pause button, and the little bar appears again. And it gives me the option, gives me a couple of options here. I can either say done, like I'm done with my, you know, with the recording, and it will save, and I'll show this to you all in a moment. Or I have the option of delete everything and start over. And I use this button a lot. And there's, you know, when you delete it and you start over. I do want to say though, and I think Nina is on the call, I recorded some things for a project that Nina and I were working on for the School of Nursing. And I thought I hit delete everything and start over, but I didn't, and I continued recording. And I might have had an expletive in my earlier version. So, you know, I think we caught it before the students saw it, thank goodness. But so just, you know, when you use this, you know, be careful, you know, just make sure you use the right button. And, you know, again, worst case scenario wouldn't have been a big of a deal, hopefully. But so you can pause here. Then if you know, like, oh, listen, I think there's 2 minutes there I'm going to take out. So you can go back a couple of slides. So let's say I want to go back to the previous slide. I'm going to start again here and then delete this part out. You can manipulate all of that later on in the editing function. The other thing that I like about Screencast-o-matic, you have some options while you're recording. So you're not just like, you make the recording or what you're doing a bit more interactive. You can do it while you're recording. You have some options later on in the editing process as well, which I'll talk about both. So for now, I want to talk about the, and you see this little arrow, this little pen here, it's called the draw and zoom. I want to be honest with you, I don't use this function a lot because I use something else to be interactive, which I'll show you in a minute, but it's one option that you can use. So you can click before you start recording, you can click on draw and zoom, and you'll see up here is a little blue bar is coming up here for you, right? For drawing and zooming. And I'm going to try to, there we go. And so you see right here what I've done. I've actually accidentally added something because I have this this bar. I have trouble moving it. Give me 1 second. Let me try to get out of my PowerPoint presentation. It's one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of using this, because I have always trouble figuring out how to use it properly. But it's gonna see, always my other stuff comes up here. But anyway, so in the draw, let me just walk you through some of the basic functions in draw and zoom. Trying to get this to move, and I'm having a real trouble with this, folks. There. No, it's really again doing. So with draw and zoom, this I think I can use this one. Aha, there we go. With draw and zoom, you have different options here. I'm going to show this to you. Give me a second. I have to move my bar for WebEx. That's why I'm having some issues here. So because it's coming up in the same spot. So I have some options here to you see it. So options. These are the options that you have to quote unquote draw and zoom. So let's focus on the draw first. You can do something freehand, and it will look something like this. You can be like, "What? Look at this, folks," or "Hello." I mean, the writing isn't that great. I can be like, "I want to really emphasize this point with you guys as you're talking to your students," right? So those are some options you have. Other options you have are the line. If you want to underline something as a line, and you see mine is pretty thick here. Change it as well to make it a thin line. You can draw it like this. You can do like, "No, don't ever do this," right? I mean, just again, some ways to make looking at a screen in a PowerPoint and listening to somebody a little bit more interactive and sort of pointing to different things in here. So that's an option. Then you have an arrow, and I like this. I have used this before. You're like, okay, so this particular part right here, everybody, I want you to pay attention to. So you can, as you're saying that, you can draw the arrow there. And you can also change the color. I have this bizarre purple color here. Let's use something a little bit less purpley. Let's use this blue. You can also draw a box around something. So you can draw a box around here. If you want to highlight something in particular, you can then draw an oval. So this is similar to everybody who has used sort of basic functions in Microsoft Word, Microsoft programs, very similar to that. You can highlight something. So kind of this little shading. You can also, hold on one second, my window is not cooperating here. There we go. You can also, so I'm trying to, Henry, you raised a hand. Go ahead, say something while I figure this thing out here, technically.
Am I the only one seeing this large chat box on the screen?
Oh no, I think that might be all of you. I'm going to close it up. Let me see. Give me 1 second. I was wondering if is it gone?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. Yeah, I took it away. So if I'm slow in responding to some of your things, Henry, some of your chats, I'll check into the chat box on every couple of minutes or so. It's just FYI, if you're putting something there and why is Isabel responding? I can't see it right now because I rather want to demo this for you. Thanks, Henry. I was wondering if you guys could see that. So there's my question is answered. So another option for this drawing feature is you can do a speech bubble, which I kind of like because you can, and this is what, and if you noticed, all the annotations I made before are gone because I went out of the draw and zoom feature. So it automatically erases if you go out of it. And so here you can write something in this text bubble saying, this is, and of course misspelling, this is super important. Or you can be like, I forgot to share my email with you. So here's my email on the screen. So make sure you write it down, right? So again, another way to be interactive, more interactively engaged with the audience in this fairly kind of static, asynchronous way. And you also have the last one is a text area where you can then, use a text area, email me at imay@umaryland, whatever, right? So those are the different options for draw and zoom. Now, the one thing that I have struggled with when I use it in my own recording is, and I'll show this to you in a second, is when I go into screen presentation mode, which it will go in a second, so bear with me. There it is. And I click on draw and zoom. let's go in this slide because there's some words on there, and I click on this, and I'll do my you know, my annotation. I write something in here. If I then want to go click on the next slide, I have to actually turn off the draw and zoom, and then I can go to the next slide. So if you're okay with that, you can pause. You can also pause. I have done this more successfully if I paused the recording, which I'm not recording now. You can see I'm just walking you through these examples. And yeah, Christina just shared something on the chat box that the research actually shows. So you can when you underline something and you know you interact this way, it really increases engagement and increases learning. And Nina was asking if you can save these. I have not figured out how to save these, which is another reason why I don't like this this draw and zoom feature. It's a very in the moment thing, which is great if that's what you want, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But again, you put a box in here and then you click out of it, it automatically erases it. So it doesn't save. It'll save in your recording, like your recording will have it, right? If you were recording, all of this would have been recorded, but it doesn't save anywhere else, just in your recording on the visual. If that answers your question, Nina, I hope. So I mentioned the draw function. There's also the zoom in function, which I have to say I have not experimented with as much. I'll talk about this in a second. So if you double click on something, it zooms in, and I think it zooms out. I have not used this a lot at all. And I think if you click escape, it goes out. But it's, again, another way to kind of get a little bit of movement into the fairly static nature of recorded lectures. I encourage you to experiment with this. I mean, literally, if you have a half an hour at some point, go in, throw any kind of slides out there and kind of see what it looks like and it feels like. And a lot of it has to do, I find, with time when you're recording, with timing and speed and what you're comfortable with. So some people might be, man, draw and zoom is the best thing ever. I'm like, yeah, not so much for me. I rather do it in a different way. I rather edit at the end, or I use a different recording function. So different things for different people, but you have the option, which is nice. So let's see, I'm going to get out of this PowerPoint here. So that's draw and zoom in a nutshell. I'm going to include in the email I'll send you, I'll include a link to some of the videos on Screencast-o-matic, but also to some of the handouts, because there are short keys for these features as well. You can press, Shift, Control, or whatever it is, H, B, whatever the short key is for that. I've never been a great short key person because it's just too much to memorize, although I've always wanted to, but it just hasn't happened yet in 45 years. But if that's something that you really like working with, you have that option as well. And the document that I for this a long time ago, actually, when I got comfortable, when I started using this, is really really clear and gives you some good instructions. While I'm in here, I'm going to repost that that link to the WUFU form for folks to sign in. So I just put that in there again in the notes because somebody was asking me about it. Let me see if I missed anybody's I think that's it. I think I have everybody's questions. So again, if you have a question or want to add to something in specific I'm saying, please feel free to either, raise your hand. Henry, well done. Because I see when somebody, you have a little, if you go in participants, you have a little hand next to your name. You can raise your hand. It pops up on my screen, so I know you want to say something. It's kind of a fun feature in WebEx. So let's look again briefly at this here. So we have looked at drawing feature or zooming feature while recording, pausing and restarting. I've shown you as well. And I'll go over this one more time. So if you click recording, again, 3, 2, 1. And I'm recording. You see in the bottom here, it's shaded. So it's actually, it's not very intrusive. I'm going to close the chat box again. Sorry about this. I record. I'm now at 41 seconds, 42. I'm going to pause. I'm going to be like, oh man, this was really not good. So delete everything and start over. Looks like this. So you get the option, yes, start over, or no. And you click on start over. It changes right back to the original setting, right? And you can go back on recording and so on. I'm going to show you now what happens when you record something and you want to save it, unless anybody has another. Oh, actually, yes, I'm going to do that quickly, and then I go into how I use my iPad before looking into some of the editing features with you. So now I've recorded a very short video of like 12 seconds. I click on done, and I get these two options. I can save and upload, or I can edit video. And either one, let's say you want to, I'm going to click on save here. So you have different options as you see the window pops out. You can just save to Screencast-o-matic, and you can also upload it to YouTube, Google Drive, and other options. I have used YouTube. The Writing Center has its own YouTube channel, and so that's the one that I have connected to my account. So if I go and save and upload here, you'll see a screen like this. So you can either save as a video file or upload to YouTube. If you want to upload to YouTube, you'll have to type in the YouTube credentials if you haven't set it up before, but it's just basically your login information you would have for the YouTube channel that you're using. If you save as a video file, it will automatically save on here in your, and it always gives you options. You want to make sure you save it as MP4. You can here type in the name of the recording, test, demo, March 31st. Let's see. And then I can just click on publish, folder, selection box. So here I could then, if I wanted to save, which I'm not going to do, save it to my computer, you can then choose the folder where you wanted to save it in. Okay, so I'm going to go back here. I'm just going to go, so I'm like, okay, so here I am with this recording number 17. I haven't really changed it yet, right? Because I didn't go through with the process. Uploading to YouTube, you'll get something like this. It will ask you to see, you get the same sort of window with, you have options here. You want to have it unlisted or private or public. You have the option of highlighting the cursor or no cursor. As you see here in the recording, the little yellow circle, that's your cursor. That's what your students will see for your cursor. You can leave it on there or not. It's totally up to you. You have the option here to change it as well when you're uploading it to YouTube. And let me move this out of the way. And so, categories, different things you could do. I just usually just name it. I put it as unlisted or private. I usually put it as private, and then I publish it, and that's it. And or sometimes I use them as public, depending on what I want to do with the recording. And you click on publish, and I'm going to do this quickly so you see what it looks like. And so now it's going on YouTube, and it takes a little bit, especially for longer recordings. I've had some trouble with it lately with a longer recording, and I had to actually save them and then upload them manually to YouTube because of some virus software issues I've been having. So just be aware that that could happen if you upload it directly. If that doesn't work, you can always save it and then upload it manually on your channel. So right now this will appear on the Writing Center channel, which I delete later. And you click on OK, and you'll actually go back to your sort of homepage, so to speak. And you see here, recording 17 is right here. It's on in the computer and not backed up to your secure online storage. So again, that's just the way that automatically is set up this way. So if I'm like, oh, you know what, I kind of want to do a little bit of work with this video because there were some parts in there I didn't like, I want to add some things. I can then click on this again anytime I want, and I just use the edit function down here. Okay. Before I go into the edit function, I do want to walk you through my process, how I record some of my videos. And I actually use, and I'm going to do a little show and tell, I use my iPad Pro, and Henry knows how much I love the iPad Pros. He's actually the one who turned me onto them, so thank you. And I use the iPad Pro with an Apple Pencil, and I'll show you in a second what that looks like. So in order to do that, in order for me to use this as my sort of, not the recording device, the PC, my computer, my laptop remains the recording device, but I'm recording what's happening on the iPad. It means that I have to mirror the iPad. So I have this little app here, and this might take a couple of times before this uploads because my computer is a little ancient and takes its time to open. So while that hopefully happens at some point, I'm going to minimize the windows here. That sometimes helps when the things show up more quickly. So again, it's a reflector app. There's tons of different apps out there. I did some research on this a few years ago because I wanted to figure out how to mirror my iPad on the laptop. The reason why I want to do that, and I'll show this to you once the reflector comes up. So let me make sure I can mirror here my iPad. The reason I wanted to do that is because I like this Apple Pen. And when I work, you know, all of my teaching is based on writing. So a lot of it is sort of showing people how to quote unquote edit or revise or rephrase certain things. So I like having people see when I draw and write things. And the Apple Pencil does that for me. So basically the iPad Pro becomes kind of like a smart screen. And I wanted to record that, and I couldn't, and you can't really record well on the iPad. So I did some research and I tried to figure out how that would work if I would do some screen mirroring. So you have to bear here with me for a second. It sometimes takes multiple attempts for I'm working on my iPad right now, so it's going to screen mirror. Hopefully it'll work, because it would be kind of it's kind of cool to see. I was testing it out earlier with Angela, my colleague, and it worked. So hopefully it will do me the favor and work here in a moment as well. So when I do, and again, most of my recording is PowerPoint based. If I have, let's say, a sentence on there and I want to show like, hey, you should change this around this way, the Apple, you know, students see me sort of drawing while I'm talking on there. Okay, it is not cooperating here with me, so I will close this up again one more time and maybe open it. While that is going on, let me check nothing in the chat because I was something else new come up. I'll try this towards the end again because this might take too long. It's too bad because it really looks kind of fun. So let me go back to, again, I want to go over some editing features in Screencast-o-matic because they're kind of fun as well. And then if we have time at the end, I hope I'm going to be able to get into this screen mirroring. So yeah, Bonnie is interested in using that. So bear with me. Let's go through the editing part first because it doesn't take too long. Because again, I'm not the super experienced editor in here. I've used a few functions over the years in Screencast-o-matic, but not a lot. But I've familiarized myself a little bit with them. So at least I want to show to you what's out there. And then again, I encourage you to play around with this. So we're back here. We have our recording. Oh, you know, whooping, whatever, 13 seconds. Of course, it will be longer. And you like, okay, I'm going to edit some stuff in here. So I click on the edit function and it opens up a similarly looking window with different options. So I'll walk you through the options that I'm familiar with and I thought might be most useful. So on the right here, you see what is showing. If you don't want the cursor to show, you can click it off and you'll see how it disappeared on the screen on the recording. Let me click back on it again. You see the yellow circle. You can click that off. I usually click that off because I find the circle looks kind of weird. And mostly because I use my pencil on the iPad recording to highlight things anyway. So I don't need the cursor to be highlighted, mostly because I use PowerPoints anyway. But I have used the cursor once as I was recording how to set up a paper, the APA style, it's a 6th edition, an APA style paper in Word. So there it was actually useful to have. If we would have recorded with webcam, which we didn't, but I'll show you a prepared video I did for you a little bit in a couple of minutes, you can then click on here, either webcam on and off. Right now, of course, I can't turn anything off or on because I didn't use the webcam. But if you, let's say you're like, oh, gee, the webcam was a good idea, I think. And then you record and you're like, oh, no, or like, oh, my God, my hair was crazy. If, you know, right now I don't look my best either, but that's because I'm not leaving the house. So live with it. But if I decide, again, I don't want to use the webcam, I can click that off here completely as well. Okay. Oh, the one thing I forgot to show you is how you can manipulate while you record. So I'll do that in a second. It's very easy. So I mentioned this earlier, that you can, when you start recording, you start off with the webcam and you can then turn it off and put it somewhere else. I'll go over that in a second, because that's another way that you can manipulate webcam presence in your recordings. You can add music if you wanted to, which I have never done because, you know, I'm not doing promotional videos. But if you want to do a promotional video, and there might be some of my colleagues here from CLS who might want to do like a quick 2-minute screen recording for, you know, your Rec Fit or even for the Writing Center, you have an option to add music. So you have different types of music here. I demoed this earlier with Angela, and unfortunately you can't hear the music that I'm playing right on here. But just imagine there's different types of music. Again, experiment with it. Some of it is mostly sort of elevator-ish music. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the difference between corporate and acoustic is. Honestly, they all kind of sound the same to me, but I'm not a music kind of expert, so there might be subtle differences that are just eluding me. But you have the option to put music on your video, you have options with, you see the little bars right here. Those are other audio options for narration. So let's say you want to do a 5-minute video, a short one, and you kind of want the music in the background when you're speaking. You have those options here under normalize, reduce noise, and there are some options underneath as well. Let's say I've added music. So let me just add music, for the heck of it. I'm gonna go with acoustic, easygoing live. That sounds pretty good to me right now. And you'll see it imports the audio and it puts it in the entire video. This might take a while because my computer is also using the WebEx. Not too bad. I have a short video, so that helps. And then you have the option of, so let's say, your video starts off, you're not speaking for a couple of seconds, the music will be louder. And then as you start talking, the music will fade into the background. And you can manipulate to what degree and how loud or how much or how little your audience will hear of the background music with this option. So I'm looking at 40%, we're almost halfway through. So bear with me for a second. I just want you to see those functions the way they look like. So if you want to play around with it, you know what to look for and at least have an idea of what it looks like. This is taking forever, of course. So let me see. I'm not going to try the mirroring function because it's going to take too long. I like, again, the audio I have never used this for any of my recordings because my students are not there to listen to music in my class, so they're there to listen to me, fortunately or unfortunately, but that's the that's their, I want to deliver content. But if you're using it for different purpose, or maybe you're doing an intro video for the course, that might be interesting. Christina's asking a question about YouTube channel. Yes, if you don't have a YouTube channel, you can create your own YouTube channel. So let's say Bonnie, I use this as an example. Bonnie's awesome YouTube channel. You can create that, assuming that nobody has used that name before. You need a Gmail account to do that. So it's all Google based, right? Since Google sort of owns the world, right, with Microsoft, or probably together, who knows? So here we are. So now the music is on this video. So yes, you can, so just use, if you want to use your own YouTube channel, it's totally okay. Just as a little side note though, and Angela, my colleague, told me this the other day, like the Writing Center, we have a lot of videos on there. My predecessor has recorded a lot of videos with like green screen, much more sophisticated than what I'm doing. So we have those on our website as well, and they're pretty popular. So I check once a week, I check our comments on my YouTube channel, and I interact with people from all over the world. It's insane. And we have a lot of hits on our YouTube channel. Apparently, as Angela told me, I think one year the Writing Center's YouTube channel had more hits than the University of Maryland, Baltimore's YouTube channel. Ha! Go, so you see. It might also be because all of my students' videos live on there, so that drives up our numbers. But a YouTube channel can actually be effective if you want to spread your message. So if you want to have your own, create it. So here's the music is over this and then is overlaid. And let me show you the different options you see. The ducking is the thing that I've learned just recently. It's basically, as it says here, decreases the volume when you're talking, when the narration is happening. Okay. And normalizing is, you want to always click that if it's for some reason gets too loud. Thanks, Christina. It gets too loud and so on. And then you can have a loop. If let's say you have a 20-minute video and the recording, audio is only 10 minutes long, you can loop it so it goes through the entire video. Those are the options for music options. Just something to play around with. The more interesting options, I think, are here under tools. And let's see. So these are lots of different things. Very simple up here, as the name suggests, you can cut a part of your video. And I'm going to try this out with you right here. So let's say I click on cut. I click on here, and I want to cut all the way to here. This shows you that I have not used this a lot. Let me see. I think the way that works better. So I haven't used, I don't think I've ever used this in this. And drag bar below, use arrow keys to select. So yeah, I can click. So it will cut out all of that, or I can minimize it. So whatever is red will be cut, right? So you could place it wherever. And sometimes you'll have to, and this is always preview this edit. So it will tell you, you're not going to play it because there's not that much to see. But actually, let's do. So I don't think you would hear it. But it would look like it would show me. You see, like, I don't know if you've heard this. You might have not heard it, but it cut out a little bit randomly in my presentation, which of course wasn't how I would use it. I would use it to go back, oh gee, like between, you know, second 8 and 10, I kind of went off the rails, or my coffee dropped, or my microphone, or whatever happened. And you can manipulate how to cut it out. You can also, if you're like, oh gee, this is kind of hard to see, 8 or 9 seconds, you can maximize this here a little bit. You see the bars right here, you can enlarge it and make it a little larger, so you have more accurate kind of places to put your cuts or any manipulations, right? So you get there with this little the toggle timeline magnify is what it's called. So the cut function, I think, is in one that people might use. Another one that I found useful, and again, I'm just gonna, oops, I know. Click on, so tools, where are options? I like the overlay ones. Nina. I have not used any of the other ones, but you can insert, just to kind of walk through, you can insert different things, you can hide things, you can copy things, as the name suggests. So again, experiment with it. The one that I like is the overlay. And this is a little bit similar to using the draw and zoom function while you're recording. So you have an arrow option here. So for example, I want to put an arrow in here somewhere, and it selects right where I have it. And I just want to have it in this part right here. Excuse me. And you have the different, you know, there's other shapes you can use. I selected the arrow. You can customize the style. I'm not going to go into this because I don't know what it actually does, but I click on OK. And then I could have pressed play. So you see right here, if I go on my recording right here and I play it, you'll see there's an arrow that appears. It's not the greatest of an arrow, so probably would want to put a this is where, you know, this is where it gets crazy when you're in the editing function, but you can add certain things to the video that you might have missed as you were recording it. And the arrow is just one option in the overlay. You can also add text. You can add a highlight. You can add a shape as well. So again, you saw the arrows. You can add shapes. So you have different. You can rotate it. You can layer it. You can manipulate it here a little bit. So again, different options. If you use the arrow, you can, you know, draw the arrow a little differently. See, there it is. So that's the arrow that appear. And again, you manipulate on your timeline out here with the different, here. The different options, you can manipulate where it should appear. So this is where it shows that I'm not very familiar with this, because this is something I've only recently experimented with. But again, I really want to encourage you. This is something that you want to play around with and want to use. Just go in there and get your hands dirty, so to speak, or your fingertips dirty with, or your mouse or whatever, right? So just experiment with it. There are lots of more tools here in terms of any editing that you can do, where you can add audio, add narration, and so on. And I encourage you to experiment with this. I just thought that in terms of, if you're like, oh my God, I need to do something for my students to engage them a little bit better because they're all online and freaking out like all of us are, and I just want to record a quick PowerPoint on something that's really important, you know now how to at least do a basic recording of something that's on your screen. And if you want to manipulate it further, you know where to go, where to experiment with it.